If you've ever tried to change a habit and failed, well, this is for you. We're diving into James Clear's Atomic Habits, a book that basically says the secret to self-improvement isn't really about massive willpower or these huge life-changing goals. Nope, it's about tiny, almost invisible changes that compound over time into truly incredible results.
I mean, we've all been there, right? You set some big, ambitious goal, you go all in for a week, maybe two, and then, life happens. That motivation just fizzles out and you're right back where you started, feeling like you failed. But what if the problem isn't you at all? What if it's the strategy you're using?
Okay, so let's get right into it by busting probably the biggest myth in self-help. This idea that meaningful change requires some kind of massive, heroic effort. We're sort of conditioned to look for that one big moment, the one that changes everything.
We're taught to aim for the mountaintop, right? To focus on that big, audacious goal. We rely on these bursts of motivation that, let's be honest, never last. But the atomic approach, it's completely different. It's not about the destination, it's all about the small, daily steps. It's about building a system of 1% improvements that keeps working even when you don't feel motivated at all.
And this brings us to the core engine of the entire book, the almost unbelievable power of small, tiny improvements. And to really understand this, we need to look at one of the most remarkable turnarounds in the history of sports.
So for about 100 years, British cycling was just the definition of mediocre. I mean, they were so consistently underwhelming that top brands actively refused to sell them bikes. They thought it would hurt their brand image. It was literally a joke. That is, until they hired a new performance director, Dave Brailsford, who brought a totally new philosophy with him.
Brailsford's whole strategy was called the aggregation of marginal gains. Now, it sounds fancy, but the idea is actually super simple and profound. He believed that if you broke down every single thing that goes into riding a bike and then improved each tiny component by just 1%, you'd get this huge increase in performance when you put it all back together.
And they went deep. I mean, really deep. Of course, they did the obvious stuff, like redesigning bike seats and rubbing alcohol on tires for better grip. But they didn't stop there. They hired a surgeon to teach the riders how to wash their hands properly to avoid getting sick. They tested dozens of massage gels to find the one that gave the fastest muscle recovery. They even figured out the perfect pillow for each individual rider and painted the inside of the team truck white just to spot tiny bits of dust that could affect the finely tuned bikes. Seemingly tiny, insignificant things, all adding up.
So what's the big deal with 1%? Let's actually look at the math, because this is where it gets kind of mind-blowing. If you get just 1% better every single day for a year, you don't end up 365% better. Because of compounding, you end up nearly 38 times better. It's an exponential curve that just takes off.
And this is the crucial warning, that math works both ways. If you get 1% worse each day, you eat a little worse, you skip that one page of reading, you hit snooze one more time. That negative compounding is just as powerful. After a year, you're left with almost nothing. Habits are, quite literally, the compound interest of self-improvement.
Now this brings us to what might be the single most profound insight in the whole book. The reason most habits fail isn't just because our goals are too big. It's because we're focused on the wrong thing entirely. We focus on the outcome, the goal, when we really should be focusing on our identity.
So here's the crucial distinction. An outcome-based goal is all about the what. I want to lose 40 pounds. I want to write a book. But an identity-based habit, that's all about the who. I am a healthy person. I am a writer. You see the difference? One is a temporary target. The other is a fundamental shift in how you see yourself. This is all about becoming, not just doing. The goal isn't to read one book, it's to become a reader. Every single page you read isn't just progress, it's a vote. You're casting a vote for that new identity. Every action is a vote for the person you want to become.
Let's look at a real-world example here. There's this guy, Brian Clark, who is a lifelong nail-biter. He tried forever to stop using just willpower, but it never stuck. Then one day, he did something different. He paid for his first ever professional manicure. And suddenly, his nails looked nice, and for the first time, he felt this sense of pride in them. His identity shifted. He wasn't just a guy trying to stop a bad habit. He was now someone who was proud of his nails. He never chewed them again.
So if willpower isn't the answer, then what is? Well, the next big idea from Atomic Habits challenges another one of our core beliefs. The change is this big internal battle. Clear argues it's actually an external one, determined mostly by our environment.
Now, this is one of the most startling studies mentioned in the book. During the Vietnam War, heroin use among U.S. soldiers was Well, it was rampant. Research found that about 35% of them had tried it, and a shocking 20%, that's 1 in 5, were addicted. It was a massive crisis.
But then, researchers found something absolutely incredible. Back home, the relapse rate for a typical heroin user coming out of rehab is about 90%. But for those returning Vietnam vets, only 10% relapsed. 9 out of 10 soldiers who were addicted in Vietnam simply quit, almost overnight. How? Why? Because their entire environment, all the cues and triggers associated with the habit, was completely and radically changed.
This story just perfectly illustrates a simple formula from the psychologist Kurt Lewin. Behavior is a function of the person in their environment. See, we often think behavior is just a function of the person, their personality, their motivation, their willpower. But we forget about the E, the environment. It plays this huge, often invisible role in shaping everything we do.
And this leads us right to the final, really powerful takeaway. If our environment is that important, what does that say about self-control?
This is the punchline. True discipline isn't about having some heroic level of willpower. It's about being better at architecting your life so you don't even need it. The disciplined people among us aren't fundamentally different. They just spend less time in tempting situations. They build more disciplined environments.
So how do we actually do this? Clear calls it addition by subtraction. First, you prime your environment for good habits by reducing friction. You want to go to the gym in the morning? Great. Set your gym clothes out the night before. Second, you increase the friction for your bad habits using what he calls commitment devices. Want to watch less TV? Unplug it after you use it and put the remote in another room. You make the good habits easy and the bad habits hard.
So, when you put it all together, you see the real secret to lasting change. It's not about heroic effort or ironclad willpower. It's about intelligent design. It's about focusing on those tiny 1% gains, using them to cast votes for the identity you want to build, and becoming the architect of an environment that makes success almost inevitable.
So I'll leave you with this one question. Forget about next month or next year, right now. Who do you want to become? And what is the one tiny, almost insignificant 1% action you can take today to cast a vote for that identity?